It was a day of somber heat. The still, dense air was void of sound and life, no wing of bird did beat a little breeze through it. The ground was like live ashes to the feet from the black hills that loomed around the valley. Many a sudden spire of flame shot up, and writhed, and curled, and sank again, for heaviness and heavy seemed to men that day the burden of the weary world. Forevermore the sky did press closer upon the earth that lay fainting beneath, as one in dire dreams of the night, upon whose breast sits a black phantom of unrest that holds him down. The earth and sky appeared done to the troubled eye, a roof of smoke, a floor of fire. There was no water in the land. Deep in the night of each ravine men, vainly searching for it, found dry hollows in the gaping ground, like sockets where clear eyes had been, now burnt out with a burning brand. There was no water in the land but the salt sea tide, that did roll far past the places where, till then, the sweet streams met and flung it back, the beds of little brooks, that stole in springtime down each ferny glen, and rippled over rock and sand, were drier than a cattle track. A dull, strange languor of disease, that ever with the heat increased, fell upon man, and bird, and beast. The thin-flanked cattle gasped for breath, the birds dropped dead from drooping trees, and men, who drank the muddy lees from each near dry though deep dug well, grew faint, and over all things fell a heavy stupor, dank as death. Fierce nature, glaring with a face of savage scorn at my despair, withered my heart. From cone to base the hills were full of hollow eyes that rayed out darkness, dead and dull. Grey rocks grinned under ridges bare, like dry teeth in a mouldered skull, and ghastly gum tree trunks did loom out of black clefts and rifts of gloom, as sheeted spectres that arise from yawning graves at dead of night to fill the living with affright, and, like to witches foul that bare their withered arms, and bend, and cast dread curses on the sleeping lands in awful legends of the past, red gums, with outstretched bloody hands, shook maledictions in the air. Fear was around me everywhere. The wrinkled foreheads of the rocks frowned on me, and methought I saw, deep down in dismal gulfs of awe, where grey death adders have their lair, with the fiend bat, the flying fox, and dim sun rays, down groping far, pale as a dead man's fingers are, the grisly image of decay, that at the root of life doth gnaw, sitting alone upon a throne of rotting skull and bleaching bone. There is an end to all our griefs. Little the red worm of the grave will vex us when our days are done. So changed my thought, up-gazing then on grey-piled stones that seem the cairns of dead and long-forgotten chiefs, the men of old, the poor wild men who, under dim lights, fought a brave, sad fight of life, where hope was none. In the vague, voiceless, far-off years, it changed again to present pain, and I saw sorrow everywhere in blackened trees and rust-red ferns, blasted by bushfires and the sun, and by the salt flood, salt as tears, where the wild apple trees hung low, and evermore stooped down to stare at their drowned shadows in the wave, wringing their knotted hands of woe, and the dark swamp oaks, row on row, lined either bank, a somber train of mourners with down-streaming hair,